it's still tremendous. It's a big shock, you know?
When you look at Mel Brooks, you're not just seeing a man, you're staring straight into comedy history itself. At 98, he's a living monument to laughter and loss, a legend who's buried friends, mourned his wife, and outlived nearly every icon from his golden era. For decades, Mel was the man who could make the whole world laugh, no matter how dark life got. This is the same guy who once spent countless nights with Rob Reiner, sharing dinner off TV trays and watching Jeopardy like it was sacred ritual. But just yesterday, when cameras caught Mel outside his quiet, tucked-away home, where he's lived almost hidden from the world, the vibe was icy, heavy, almost eerie. No smile, no sharp joke to ease the tension. Just a tired man who looked like time itself had finally weighed him down. And now, Hollywood's gone wild with headlines about Rob Reiner, the chilling details, the shocking arrest of his son Nick, and one violent night that's torn a dynasty apart. Through it all, Mel Brooks has said nothing. And that silence? It's louder than any headline out there. Everyone knows Mel wasn't just Rob's father's best friend. He was family. Rob's godfather, Uncle Mel, the man who changed his diapers, taught him timing, and guided him from a reckless kid to one of the most respected directors alive.
You know, my father said, you know, there's going to be, he wanted to tell us before we went to sleep that night. He says, when you wake up, there's a man that's coming to visit, a man, you know. And because he didn't want us to get scared if we came in and saw this strange man. There'd be a man sleeping, and so just don't wake him up. He's sleep. So now at 5:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock, me and my sister, we look, we see this guy. He's like in a window seat, you know. And I go, I said, is that the man? That's the man. And she says, is that the man? Yeah, that's the man. That's the man. And so Mel Brooks wakes up and he sees these two little kids going, are you the man? Are you the man? Yes, I'm the man. So that was my first introduction to Mel Brooks. He was the man.
Mel didn't just watch from afar. He was right there, every step of the way. When Mel finally agreed to let a trusted journalist step inside his living room, it wasn't some flashy Hollywood setup. No lights, no cameras, no PR spin. Just a recorder, a cup of tea, and the truth spilling out like a wound that refused to close. What followed wasn't a rehearsed statement. It was a confession, raw, uneasy, heartbreaking. It flipped everything we thought we knew about what really went down inside that Brentwood house. Mel didn't start with the crime. He started with guilt. Sitting in that old armchair, hands trembling, not from age, but from pure anger, he said quietly, "People keep calling this a tragedy, a sudden break, an accident." Then he lifted his head, eyes sharp and glassy, and said, "This wasn't an accident, and it sure wasn't sudden." According to Mel, this disaster had been building in slow motion for 10 long years. Everyone close enough could see it happening, but no one dared to step in. They all loved Rob too much to confront him, and that's where the pain cuts deep.
I talk about it and it's hard for me. When I first visited the site where Medgar Evers was killed, which is where we shot the reenactment of it, right on the very site, and they were taking me through it. I stood on the driveway at the spot that he was murdered, and I started crying. And, it's very overpowering. It takes you over. And
Mel, the warmest soul in comedy, admitted that everyone close to Rob and Michelle knew Nick was unstable. They saw the storm forming, yet chose silence. But Mel made it crystal clear. This wasn't about some monster suddenly appearing. It was about parents whose love grew so blind, it turned into the very thing that destroyed them. Then Mel's voice cracked as he drifted back to one Sunday afternoon that still haunts him. 6 months before it all fell apart. It was a calm day, sunlight spilling through the windows, the kind that's supposed to feel safe. Rob had dropped by, just like always, but this time something was off. He didn't touch his food, he just paced the floor, jittery, eyes hollow. Mel said Rob looked like a man being hunted, by his own life. Mel confessed that Nick had moved back into the Brentwood estate after yet another failed rehab attempt. But this time, something felt off, darker, almost haunted. Even though Nick was in his 30s, everyone still called him the boy, and Mel said that detail alone spoke volumes. Rob told Mel that Nick had become unpredictable, paranoid, delusional, snapping without warning, like he was living inside his own storm. The tension at home was unbearable, a slow brewing chaos. Then Rob said something that made Mel freeze. He whispered that he'd started locking his bedroom door at night. Rob Reiner, the man known for kindness and empathy, now barricading himself inside his own home. That wasn't caution. That was pure fear. When Mel asked, "Why not call the police? Why not get help?" Rob's answer still echoes in Mel's house like a ghost. Rob said, "I promised Michelle I wouldn't give up on him. If I kick him out, he ends up on the street. If I keep him here, maybe I can save him."
Just the thought of a man being, killed in front of his family like that, and then having a couple of sons myself, the thought of being taken away from my sons like that, it's just so profoundly disturbing that, and that feeling permeated the whole making of the movie. I mean, there was a tremendous coming together. Everybody had the feeling that we're doing something important here, and it's meant to be seen, and all of that. And at the same time, we were all kind of holding on to each other a little bit. But there was a lot of...
Hearing that, Mel slammed his hand on the armrest, his voice shaking as he remembered yelling back, telling Rob straight, "You're not saving your son, you're protecting danger." But Rob wouldn't listen. That famous Reiner stubbornness kicked in. The same fire that made him a Hollywood legend now steering him straight into heartbreak. That unstoppable drive, once his strength on set, had turned deadly at home. Mel truly believed that Rob's refusal to draw boundaries became the real breaking point. The headlines might focus on the violence, but what Mel revealed next, about the money, twisted the knife even deeper. People look at the Reiners and see endless wealth, the Castle Rock empire, the legacy, the awards, and they assume money erases pain. Mel said that couldn't be further from the truth. Over the past 2 years, the Reiners weren't just emotionally drained. The weight of it all started to hit their finances too. Not because they were anywhere near broke, but because the pressure, the lawyers, the rehabs, the constant crisis never stopped coming. Mel said Nick's demands had turned ruthless. No more asking, no more guilt tripping. He was straight up demanding payment, claiming it was payback for how he'd been raised. Mel explained that Nick had twisted his parents' love and open-mindedness into something dark, calling it reparations, using their compassion as a weapon. He told them his struggles deserved millions, and he pushed that guilt trip until it became his full-time game. Mel said it wasn't chaos, it was strategy, cold and deliberate. Rob would show up at Mel's house looking wrecked, tears in his eyes, phone trembling in his hand. He'd scroll through message after message from Nick, cruel, manipulative, filled with blame. Nick accused his father of everything, his pain, his failures, his addictions. Yet somehow, the very next day, Rob would still give in, buying him a car, covering rent, funding another wild idea. Mel called it the Hollywood illusion, that false belief that if you throw enough money, love, or time at a problem, you can rewrite the ending. Rob honestly believed he could direct his son's recovery like one of his films. Fix the lighting, rewrite the script, make everything come together in the final act. But life's not a movie. There are no retakes, no reshoots, no editing room miracles. Mel said he saw where this was headed long before anyone dared admit it. It all became painfully clear last holiday season. The family gathered at Rob's place, small, cozy, but tense from the second Nick walked through the door. The air felt electric, like one wrong word could shatter the room. Mel couldn't stop watching Nick, or rather, watching how Nick watched his father. It wasn't the gaze of a son anymore. It was cold, locked in, almost territorial. Then Rob did what he always did. Cracked one of his classic self-deprecating jokes, the kind that usually melted any tension. Everyone laughed, except Nick. He didn't even flinch. Later that night, Mel pulled Rob aside, gripped his shoulders, and begged him, "Robbie, you need to get him out. He's not looking at you with love. He's looking at you with ownership." Mel said he poured every ounce of fear and care into those words. But Rob, being loyal to the core, brushed it off as criticism. "You don't understand him like I do," he said softly. "He's hurting." That's when Mel broke down during the interview. Not for himself, but for Rob, and for the boy he once knew. The same kid who used to crawl across Carl Reiner's living room floor while Mel cracked jokes in the background. That boy had grown into a man who couldn't tell the difference between love and enabling. Mel said that guilt still eats at him every night. As one of the last living pillars of that golden comedy generation, he feels he failed. Failed his people, his friends, his family, and the legacy they built together. And the part that haunts him the most? He never called the police himself. He whispered that it's a weight he'll carry for the rest of his life. Then came that night, the moment that froze everything, the night the laughter stopped cold. The official reports may list neat little timestamps, locations, and police notes, but Mel said he knows what really went down in those haunting hours because Rob called him that night. It was late. Mel was already in bed when the phone rang. He almost ignored it, but something deep in his gut told him to pick up. On the other end, Rob's voice was soft, cracked, whispery, barely holding together. There were no jokes, no casual chatter, just a heavy silence that carried more than words. Mel said, he wasn't saying goodbye, but it felt like goodbye. Rob told him, he's losing control again. He's shouting about the will. He thinks we're cutting him out. Mel's heart dropped. He begged him, leave Robbie, get in the car, come here now. But Rob's answer froze him. I can't leave Michelle, she's with him. She's trying to calm him down. If I go, he'll take it out on her. Mel went silent, retelling that part. Rob stayed in that house, not out of pride or denial, but out of love. He knew the danger, he felt it closing in, but he refused to abandon his wife in the storm. In the middle of chaos, he stood his ground to protect her, even knowing the price he might pay. That was the last time Mel Brooks ever heard Rob Reiner's voice. The media turned Nick into a headline, chaos personified, but Mel refuses that version. He insists no one can truly understand what happened that night without seeing the years of resentment, pressure, and pain that had been building long before it all exploded. Mel called it the shadow of Carl Reiner, the shadow of legacy, the curse of being born into greatness and expected to match it before you even find your own identity. He said that kind of inheritance can crush anyone who isn't built strong enough to bear it. According to Mel, Nick wasn't talentless. Not at all. He had vision, big ideas, flashes of brilliance. But he wanted the spotlight without the struggle, the fame without the fight. When Hollywood didn't hand him what he thought he was owed, he didn't look inward. He turned the blame outward. And that blame, it landed right on the man who gave him everything.
You know, we have a big courtroom and, Jack has this long monologue. And I said to him before, I said, look, I'll give you a choice. Either I can shoot, if you want to shoot, ready now, I'll shoot you right now. If you want some time to work on it, rehearse it, I will shoot all the reaction shots first, and then we turn the camera around on you and, whatever. He said, why don't you, shoot the reaction shots, and that will give me it. So, I got Tom Cruise cut away, Demi Moore, Kevin Bacon, I got, Kevin Pollak. I mean, the judge, the jury. I'm doing all the reaction shots.
Mel said Nick grew convinced that Rob's success stole his future, that every opportunity closed to him was because his father's shadow loomed too large. He resented Rob for being adored, respected, unstoppable, for being too much of everything he wasn't. Mel sighed, saying it's a story he's seen over and over in Hollywood. The same tragic pattern, children of legends chasing ghosts they can never outrun until the shadow finally swallows them whole. Jealousy, eating away from the inside out. But this time, Mel said, it went darker than anything he'd ever witnessed before. From the outside, the Brentwood house looked picture perfect. Trimmed lawns, gleaming hedges, every decoration placed with care. To the world, it screamed stability. But inside, the cracks had been spreading for years, silent but unstoppable, like rot beneath polished wood. Mel didn't just point fingers at the family dynamic, he went straight for the system that fed it. His tone sharpened when he spoke about the professionals, the therapists, the consultants, the doctors, all those people who were supposed to protect, but instead played it safe for a paycheck. Mel said they softened every truth until it vanished completely. They called it radical compassion, he muttered. They turned warnings into buzzwords and danger into diagnosis. According to Mel, they told Rob and Michelle that tough love was outdated, that being firm was cruel. They took Rob's money just to tell him what he wanted to hear, that Nick wasn't dangerous, just struggling. Mel didn't hold back. He called them accomplices. He said they wrapped destruction in polite words, gave it clean labels, filed it neatly away under treatment plans. They sanitized it, Mel said, voice trembling. They gave it a name and locked it in a folder. They turned a ticking time bomb into paperwork, and that, Mel said, is why he's speaking now. He doesn't care about the trial or the verdict or who wins in court. To him, the courtroom is just paperwork. The real story, he said, was already written long before that night. What Mel wants now is simple. He wants people to remember Rob Reiner for who he truly was, not what happened to him. He doesn't want Rob frozen in headlines or turned into a tragic figure. He wants him remembered as a man who kept showing up, even when his heart was cracking apart. Rob didn't quit. Mel said softly, he stayed. He believed he could still be the father his son needed, the one who doesn't walk away when things get ugly. Mel said that's what real love looks like. Not glamorous, not dramatic, but standing in the fire because you still think love might fix it. Everyone says they'd give everything for their kids, Mel whispered. Rob actually did. Then his voice cracked, because that love, that sacrifice, didn't save his son. It didn't heal him. It only sealed Nick's fate forever. As the interview wound down, Mel fell completely silent. The room itself seemed to speak. Movie posters from Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein, old photos of Carl and Rob, a framed picture of Anne Bancroft smiling from the corner. Mel's eyes drifted across them all, ghosts of laughter, echoes of a golden age, and the crushing weight of legacy hung heavy in the air. The weight of it all was pressing in. Mel looked like a man stranded on an island made of memories, clinging to what little light still flickered around him. He said the hardest part now isn't the anger, it's the silence. No more ringing phones, no Sunday dinners. The laughter that once filled every corner of his home, gone. That silence, Mel said softly, is the loudest sound I've ever known. The link to Carl is gone. I'm the last one, he whispered. A sentence that, he admitted, will follow him until the end. The hardest truth, he said, is knowing he saw it coming and couldn't stop it. The weight doesn't lift. It just sinks deeper, heavier, every single day. Mel talked briefly about the private funeral. No cameras, no red carpet, just family and truth. He said he'll speak there, but warned people not to expect jokes or witty one-liners. No humor, no clever deflection, he said. Just honesty. He plans to stand up and say exactly what he told the journalist. Raw, unfiltered, real. He wants every powerful parent in Hollywood to hear him loud and clear. To stop pretending money can fix what love refuses to face. You can't love danger out of someone, Mel said sharply. You can't buy it away. You can't explain it away. For a man who spent his entire life turning pain into laughter, Mel said there's no comedy left in this story. No satire. No punchline. This isn't absurd, he said firmly. This is what happens when love loses balance. The room went still. As the journalist began to pack up, Mel suddenly reached out, his hand gripping the reporter's arm. His voice dropped, urgent, rough, almost trembling. Nick didn't act alone, he said. He explained that there were people around Nick, so-called friends, who lived off Rob's generosity, who fueled his resentment, who whispered poison just to keep the chaos alive. Mel's voice cracked as he spoke. Nick may have held the weapon, he said, but plenty of people helped sharpen the blade. That single line hit like a thunderclap. It defined everything. This wasn't the Mel Brooks the world knew. Not the entertainer, not the showman. This was a witness, a truth teller, a man stripped bare of laughter, stripped of irony, standing face to face with the brutal reality of love and loss. He couldn't joke it away anymore. The glossy image of the Reiner legacy, the awards, the applause, the spotless Brentwood life, shattered in his words. What was left were just people. Fragile, flawed, hopeful human beings who loved too much, forgave too easily, and only realized too late where that love was leading. So when the trial kicks off this January, cameras zooming in on Nick Reiner, orange jumpsuit glowing under harsh courtroom lights, Mel says the world can't look away. Don't let it fade into another headline or scrolling ticker on the evening news. Remember him, 98 years old, sitting alone in his chair, tears running for the boy he once bounced on his knee, and for the best friend he couldn't save. Because the truth, the real truth, isn't clean. It's built from small, painful moments, the warnings brushed off, the quiet excuses, the doors left unlocked because locking them felt too cruel. That's the part nobody ever wants to face. Not the explosion, but the slow unraveling that came long before it. Mel's silence is gone now, but its echo hasn't faded. It lingers like a chill that won't leave the room. The realization hits hard. Even the people who've spent their whole lives giving the world laughter and happy endings sometimes have to live through their own darkest chapters. The interview didn't end in spectacle or staged emotion. It ended quietly. Mel turned toward the window, staring into the blinding California sun. The light felt too bright for a day this heavy. His body looked frail, his face carved with nearly a century of laughter and loss. But his eyes stayed steady. Mel Brooks said he's done protecting illusions. No more polishing legacies, no more guarding reputations. He's not defending names anymore. He's defending truth. And that truth, as he tells it, is harsh but real. Rob Reiner wasn't destroyed overnight. He was slowly consumed by the very life he fought so hard to protect. Mel said that kind of tragedy doesn't fade with time. No amount of laughter, no amount of legacy can patch it up. What's left now is the reckoning, for everyone. The reminder that behind every perfect family photo, every flawless Hollywood legacy, there are cracks we choose not to see. Mel Brooks did what almost no friend ever could. He told the raw, uncomfortable truth about the man he loved most. And now that truth hangs heavy in the air, impossible to ignore. He stripped away the polish, showed the pain underneath, and that's exactly why people should listen. When a man near the end of his life raises his voice like this, ignoring him isn't just disrespect, it's pure arrogance. The loss of Rob Reiner didn't just break hearts. It shook Hollywood to its core. But Mel believes that if people truly absorb the message buried inside this tragedy, maybe, just maybe, it can finally break the cycle that keeps repeating in silence. Yes, the investigation will move forward. Yes, the trial is coming. But for Mel Brooks, the verdict's already in. The world just has to be brave enough to hear it. Mel Brooks believes the system failed, the experts failed, and most painfully of all, the endless unconditional love inside the Reiner family failed too. It's a brutal truth, one Mel said he never wanted to face, but now it's the only honest one left. And as the headlines start to fade, that truth sits heavy. In all our hands, Mel's left haunted by one image that never leaves his mind. An old man sitting alone in a quiet room, carrying the weight of a dynasty's end. That weight doesn't disappear when the cameras go dark or the reporters drive away. It follows him through sleepless nights, through the long hours when there's no laughter left to drown it out. This isn't about blame, Mel said softly. It's about honesty, about saying what everyone around Rob saw, but couldn't admit while there was still time to change it. He insists he isn't rewriting history or tearing anyone down. He's just making sure the myth doesn't turn into a lie. Mel doesn't want Rob remembered as a victim or another tragic Hollywood headline. He wants people to see the quiet years that led there, the ignored warnings, the kind-hearted excuses, the love that blinded instead of saved. This story isn't supposed to be comfortable, Mel said, because real life isn't neat. It leaves cracks, it leaves guilt, it leaves you wondering what one different choice might have changed everything. Speaking out hasn't brought him peace. If anything, it's made the ache sharper. But Mel said silence felt worse, like betrayal. Silence, he whispered, was just another layer of pretending. So now he speaks, not as a legend, not as the comedy king of Hollywood, but as an old man who loved his friend and watched him walk towards something he couldn't stop. And that truth, heavy, unfinished, raw, lingers in the room long after Mel stops talking. There was one more thing Mel said, something that never made the headlines, but the reporter said he'll never forget it. Mel looked down, voice trembling, and said, "The hardest part isn't just losing Rob. It's realizing how close everyone came to stopping it, and still didn't." He talked about all the warning signs that seemed obvious only after the fact, the unease, the tension in the air, the fear nobody dared to name. Mel admitted even he doubted himself sometimes. He wondered if he was overreacting, if age had made him too cautious, if love had blinded him too. That self-doubt, Mel said, is what danger feeds on. It grows in hesitation. It survives in politeness. It thrives when people choose comfort over confrontation. And that's where Rob lived, caught in that impossible tension between protecting his family and protecting the image of togetherness he'd built his whole career on. Rob didn't want to be the father who gave up. He didn't want to be the man who admitted things had spun out of control. So he held on, until holding on became the very thing that broke everything apart. That pressure, to stay patient, to keep understanding, to always be kind, slowly trapped him. Mel said the most painful part is knowing none of it came from bad intentions. Everyone thought they were doing the loving thing. Everyone believed one more chance might finally fix it. Then Mel leaned back in his chair, eyes heavy, voice low. "Love without limits," he said softly, "stops being love. It becomes fear, dressed up as compassion." The exhaustion etched deep into his face said it all. He didn't look angry anymore, just worn down, like a man who's carried too much for too long. It was clear he wasn't speaking for attention or fame. He was speaking because holding the truth alone had become too heavy to bear. Mel didn't hold back when people called the tragedy unthinkable. That's how the world avoids accountability, he snapped. If it's unthinkable, then no one has to ask what they ignored. He told the reporter, "This wasn't lightning from a clear sky. It was a storm that warned everyone before it hit." Mel said Hollywood has a dangerous habit, turning dysfunction into art when it comes wrapped in money and fame. Behavior that would never fly in a regular family suddenly gets rebranded as creative, eccentric, or misunderstood. Red flags get rewritten into PR statements, and real danger gets treated like an inconvenience. Rob Reiner, Mel said with a sigh, got caught in that same machine. Everywhere he turned, people told him to be kind, be patient, be understanding, but almost no one told him to be firm, and even fewer dared to tell him to be afraid. Fear isn't weakness, Mel said quietly. It's information. But Rob lived surrounded by people who convinced him to tune it out. They made fear sound like failure, when really, it was the one thing trying to save him. Mel said there's a difference between empathy and surrender, and Rob crossed that line without even realizing it. Not because he was foolish, but because he was loyal to the end. Rob truly believed love could outlast anything if you just held on long enough. Beautiful idea, Mel murmured, but dangerous too. Because when reality doesn't play along, that kind of blind love, as pure as it sounds, can turn fatal. Mel's voice trembled as he spoke, not from anger, but from recognition. Too many families, he said, will see themselves in this. The silence, the excuses, the desperate hope that tomorrow will fix what today clearly won't. That's why Mel keeps speaking, not to shame anyone, but to destroy the illusion that this tragedy came out of nowhere. Sometimes the warning isn't silent, Mel said. Sometimes it's screaming, and people just don't want to hear it. In the end, this story leaves one haunting truth. Fame protects you from nothing. Not from pain, not from betrayal, not even from the ones you love most. Rob Reiner's legacy will live forever through his films. That's permanent. But now, because Mel Brooks chose truth over silence, Rob's story carries something else too. A painful lesson about the limits of love and the fragility of the human heart. The silence has been broken. The shock is real. And this truth cuts deeper than any script ever could. This was never meant to comfort. It was a story Mel had to tell before time ran out, whether the world wanted to hear it or not. It's the story we all needed, because pretending otherwise only guarantees it happens again. In the end, there's only one way to truly honor someone who's gone. Tell the truth. Not the polished version, not the rewritten one. Just truth. Raw, human, uncomfortable truth. Mel Brooks honored Rob Reiner in the only way he knew how, by refusing to let his friend's story be wrapped up neat and convenient. He exposed the heart of it, the pain, the warning, the reality that love, no matter how fierce, sometimes can't save you from what's already growing in the dark. So don't let this story fade with the headlines. Let it stay with you. Let it unsettle you. Let it make you look at your own family, your own limits, your own silence. If this story hit you, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video so the message reaches further. Drop a comment and share your thoughts. Your voice matters. And share this story so more people understand what really happened behind those glossy Hollywood headlines. And don't forget to subscribe to Naked Frame, where we bring you stories that go beyond the surface. Stories that challenge, confront, and refuse to be ignored. Because some stories aren't meant to entertain. They're meant to wake people up. And this story, should stay with you long after the screen goes dark.